They said you'd be in therapy for the rest of your life, said you'd never trust anyone again, said the damage was permanent. So why are you standing here, reading this with steady hands, while everyone else who went through half of what you survived is somewhere medicated, monitored, and barely holding on? You know what makes you different from them. You didn't try to stay sane. While they were clinging to normalcy like it was a life raft, you let go, sank all the way to the bottom, and discovered you could breathe down there. They're still trying to float. You learned to swim in the dark. Let me tell you about the others. The ones who face the same narcissist, the same toxic parent, the same psychopath who decided your mind was their playground. They're in support groups right now, trying to explain why they can't sleep, why every text message feels like a threat, why they check their phone 40 times an hour, waiting for the next attack that isn't coming anymore. They're somewhere crying to therapists about how they can't tell what's real, keeping journals to verify their own memories, recording conversations just to prove they're not crazy. But you're out here functioning, going to work, making small talk, smiling at strangers, like your interior world isn't a war zone. You're holding conversations while carrying mass graves in your chest. You're making plans for next week, while last year is still trying to kill you. The gaslighting should have destroyed you. They rewrote your history while you were living it, told you things that happened, never happened, told you words you said, were never spoken, made you question whether your own memories were real or invented. They edited your reality in real time, like a film director cutting scenes, except you were living in the movie, and the movie kept changing every time you tried to remember the plot. Others lost their minds to this, started documenting everything obsessively, taking screenshots of text messages, saving emails as evidence, building case files against their own perception. They became lawyers, prosecuting their own sanity. But you stopped trying to prove what was real, stopped seeking validation from people who weaponized truth itself, became your own authority on your own experience. You learned that reality is negotiable when dealing with people who treat facts like furniture they can rearrange. The isolation tactics were surgical. They didn't just cut you off. They turned your friends into flying monkeys, your family into accomplices, your support system into an attack vector. They poisoned every relationship with carefully planted lies, infected every connection with strategic doubt, made sure that when you finally broke, no one would believe your version of events. They told your friends you were unstable, told your family you were dramatic, told everyone who mattered that you were the problem, the crazy one, the one who couldn't be trusted. And people believed them because they were so calm, so reasonable, so convincing in their performance. Others are still trying to rebuild those bridges, still explaining themselves, still trying to convince people that they're not the villain in someone else's narrative. They're starving for someone to see them clearly, desperate for a single person to say, "I believe you." But you learned to exist without external validation. Learned to be the only witness you need. Learned that the only testimony that matters is your own. You became self-sufficient in ways that border on supernatural. They starved you emotionally, gave you breadcrumbs of affection and called it love, gave you moments of kindness and made you grateful for the absence of abuse, gave you hope in measured doses, just strong enough to keep you trying, but never enough to actually thrive. They watched you starve while they fed on your desperation, like vampires at a blood bank. You'd do anything for their approval, change yourself, sacrifice your needs, abandon your boundaries, shrink yourself into something they could tolerate. And just when you thought you'd finally gotten it right, they'd move the target, change the rules, tell you that everything you just did was wrong. Actually, others developed attachment patterns that guarantee suffering, trauma bonds that feel like love, addictions to intermittent reinforcement that will haunt them for decades. They're still chasing the high of those rare moments when the abuse stopped, still trying to earn love from people who use affection as a weapon. But you learned to generate your own warmth in the middle of their winter. Learned to feed yourself on resources they didn't even know existed. Learned that hunger could be a teacher if you stopped fighting it. You stopped waiting for them to feed you and learned to find sustenance in places they couldn't access. Every single day was a trap with no right answer. Stay, and you're weak for tolerating abuse. Leave, and you're cruel for abandoning them. Fight back, and you're the abuser now. Accept it, and you're complicit in your own destruction. They built a maze where every exit led back to shame, where every choice resulted in your condemnation. They'd accuse you of the very things they were doing to you, call you manipulative while manipulating you, call you controlling while controlling every aspect of your reality, call you abusive while systematically destroying your sense of self. The projection was so perfect, it made you question everything. Others are still trapped in those double binds, still replaying conversations trying to figure out what they should have said, still analyzing situations trying to find the response that would have worked. They're paralyzed by choices that were designed to be unwinnable from the start. But you stopped playing their game, stopped looking for the right answer in a rigged system, burned the entire maze down, and walked through the ashes. You realized the only way to win was to refuse the premise of the competition. You digested abuse like it was your daily nutrition, consumed betrayal with your morning coffee, processed manipulation before lunch, absorbed emotional torture by dinner, and asked for seconds. While others were vomiting from the poison, you were building immunity, studying the composition, analyzing the tactics. Somewhere in that process, you stopped being fully human. You crossed a line that separates people who are destroyed by trauma from people who are forged by it. Stopped being the victim and became something else entirely, something that doesn't break the same way. You learned to read people like crime scenes, to analyze behavior like evidence, to predict attacks before they happened. You developed a sixth sense for danger that others don't have. Can smell a narcissist from across a room, can identify manipulation in the first 5 minutes of conversation, can see red flags that are invisible to normal people. Your nervous system evolved, developed threat detection that operates at speeds that shouldn't be possible, pattern recognition that borders on precognition, defense mechanisms that activate before you're consciously aware of danger. You became an early warning system for psychological warfare. They thought they were breaking you, but they were training you. Every attack was education. Every betrayal was data. Every lie was a lesson in how predators think. You weren't enduring abuse. You were getting a PhD in psychological warfare from the worst professors imaginable. Now you can see them coming a mile away, spot the love bombing in the first date, recognize the triangulation in the first week, identify the devaluation before it starts. You've become immune to tactics that destroy other people. Whatever raised you wasn't preparing you for a normal life. Every childhood trauma was boot camp. Every early betrayal was training. Every abandonment was conditioning for what you'd face later. You weren't being neglected. You were being forged in fires that would kill most people. Maybe it was the parent who loved you conditionally, taught you that affection had to be earned and could be revoked without warning, showed you that safety was temporary and belonging was a privilege, not a right. They trained you to survive in emotional wastelands before you had the language to describe what was happening. Maybe it was chaos that forced you to become the adult before you finished being a child, crisis management at 8 years old, emotional regulation for everyone else, while your own needs went unmet, reading the room for danger signs before you could read books. You became a tiny soldier, in a war you didn't understand. Or maybe it was something else, something that watched from the shadows and whispered prophecies about what you'd need to survive. Something that put you through trials that seemed random but were actually curriculum, suffering that felt meaningless but was actually preparation for battles you'd fight later. Whatever it wasn't raising a normal person. It was creating a weapon, forging something that could operate in conditions that eliminate everyone else, building something that couldn't be broken by conventional means. Your operating system runs on different code now. When others encounter problems, they crash. When you encounter problems, you adapt, upgrade, evolve. You're running software that learns from attacks, integrates damage, becomes stronger with each attempted breach. They hit you with betrayal, and your system didn't just recover, it evolved, added new defenses, developed prediction algorithms, learned to see attacks before they landed. Each wound didn't just heal, it transformed into armor. Each trauma became a tool. Each breaking point became a breakthrough to the next level. You've been through factory resets that should have corrupted you permanently, had your entire reality uninstalled and reinstalled so many times, you've lost count. Experienced psychological deaths that don't leave bodies. But every time you reboot, you come back stronger, more sophisticated, more dangerous, more impossible to defeat. You're still standing, but let's be honest, you're not the same shape you were before. You're vertical, but your structure has changed, adapted, evolved to withstand pressures that would crush normal architecture. You're functional, but your function has transcended what they recognize as human. Some days you feel the welds, the places where you put yourself back together with whatever was available, the joints that don't align right anymore, the parts held together by will alone. But you don't hide them anymore. You weaponize them. Let them see that broken doesn't mean defeated, that shattered can still be dangerous. You stand different now, not with pride but with defiance, not with confidence but with certainty, the certainty of someone who's already survived their own death multiple times. You don't stand tall, you stand inevitable, like gravity, like time, like something that cannot be stopped by anything in their arsenal. They keep waiting for you to collapse, keep checking to see if you've finally been hospitalized, keep expecting to hear you've given up. But every day you continue existing is an act of rebellion against every natural law that says you should be gone by now. Here's what terrifies them. You're proof that their weapons have limits, evidence that some people transcend their capacity for destruction, testimony that psychological warfare doesn't work on everyone. You survived what was designed to be unsurvivable, endured what was meant to be unendurable, processed what was supposed to break you permanently. Your existence invalidates their entire understanding of human limitations, challenges their theories about what people can withstand, forces them to acknowledge that some souls cannot be harvested by their methods. You're the glitch in their system, the error in their calculations, the specimen that shouldn't exist according to their models. They studied psychology to learn how to break people, learned which buttons to push, which wounds to exploit, which fears to weaponize. But while they were pushing buttons, you were rewiring yourself, changing your own code, writing new programming they couldn't read. Now they look at you with fear disguised as confusion, like scientists observing something that breaks their theories. They want to understand you, but they're afraid to get close, afraid that whatever you have might spread, afraid that your immunity might be contagious, afraid that others might learn what you know. Let's talk about the cost, though, because survival doesn't mean unscathed. You paid for this immunity with pieces of yourself you'll never recover, lost the ability to be naive, can't unsee patterns once you've learned to recognize them, can't unhear lies once you've learned their frequency. You lost the luxury of shallow connections, can't do small talk when you've been to the depths, Can't pretend minor problems matter when you've solved impossible equations. Can't relate to people who've never had their reality questioned. You're speaking a language most people don't even know exists. You lost the comfort of belonging, too intense for the shallow end, too damaged for the deep end, too aware for the sleeping, too scarred for the awakened. You exist in a category without a name, a demographic of one. But here's what you need to understand. You're not still standing because you're strong. You're still standing because you're transformed. You're not surviving because you're tough. You're surviving because you've transcended normal rules of survival. You're not functional because you've healed. You're functional because you've evolved past the need for healing. What you've become doesn't have a diagnosis, because it doesn't exist in their manuals. Doesn't have treatment because it's not a condition. Doesn't have a cure because it's not a disease. You're an adaptation, an evolution, a mutation that occurred under pressures most people will never experience. You're the result of psychological natural selection, the survivor of elimination rounds that removed everyone else. What remains when everything has been burned away? The irreducible core, the thing that cannot be destroyed because it's already survived every form of destruction. You know what really terrifies them? It's not what you survived, it's what you're becoming. Someone who's processed that much poison has developed immunity that makes them unstoppable. Someone who survived that level of warfare has learned tactics that can't be defended against. Someone still standing after what you've been through is just getting started. You're not in recovery, you're in training. Not healing from the last battle, but preparing for the next level. Not trying to return to normal, but establishing a new baseline that exists beyond their comprehension. They know someone like you can't be controlled by conventional means, can't be motivated by normal rewards, can't be threatened by standard punishments, can't be manipulated by usual methods because you've seen them all. You've become ungovernable, unmanageable, unpredictable, in ways that make their systems obsolete. The future you're building doesn't include them, doesn't require their approval, doesn't depend on their structures or permissions. You're constructing something from scratch, using materials they don't recognize and blueprints they can't read. You're not just surviving their world anymore, you're making it irrelevant. And if this resonates, if you felt something shift in your chest reading this, hit subscribe, because you're going to need to remember where you found someone who actually understands what you've been through. Drop a comment telling me which part hit hardest, because there are more of us than they want you to know, and we're just getting started. You're still here, still breathing, still standing, and that fact alone is more powerful than any weapon they ever used against you.